Today on Mother Mayhem.
You might be protecting your mom from the awkwardness she's creating. Let her be awkward. Let people think of her what they are going to think of her. You don't have to protect her from herself, and you don't have to worry what people will think of you. Trust that anyone you have invited into your home who isn't your mother or father is going to love you, feel for you, and see you for who you are. And yes, that means they will also see your mom for who she is. Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast for Daughters. Hi, I'm your host, Heather Gray, and you guys better hold on to your hats today because I have been given today's listeners permission to be a little bit sassy. And I'm pretty excited if you can't tell. I get to introduce you today to Meredith. And yes, I totally named her after Meredith on Grey's Anatomy because, after all, today's listener is a pediatric nurse practitioner and also has a narcissistic mother. So, how could I not with a listener in the medical field? So, Meredith, our podcast listener, keeps bumping into the same stuck spots with her parents, and she's looking for what to say in those moments. So let's first listen in to what Meredith has to say, and then I'm going to find you guys right on the other side. So here's what she has to say. Dear Heather, first of all, thank you so much for making this podcast. Sometimes I feel like you are speaking to me directly. I grew up with a stay-at-home mom who always reminded me how good I had it. She also would tell me things about her marriage to my father that now, as an adult, I know are inappropriate. She would tell me that my father was not a good father to me and would not and could not care for me. The only reason she did not leave him was because she didn't want me and my brother alone in his care. Therefore, she was telling me her unhappy marriage was because of her sacrifice to me, otherwise known as being my fault. It took me getting into adulthood and going through therapy to realize my mother was a narcissist. She constantly has a victim complex and makes me feel guilty about not doing what it is she wants. I realized her detrimental effect on me after my education was completed. I have a doctorate and I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I take care of sick children in an urgent care setting. As an adult now in an authority role, I notice myself crumbling under parents who question me or who doubt me. I find myself wanting to please them and avoid upsetting them versus doing the care that I know is correct. I've improved on this through therapy and I find myself speaking up for myself, but I have a lot of feelings of guilt after, for either upsetting the parents or not giving the parent the answer they wanted. My spouse is amazing and very helpful, and although he didn't grow up with a mother like this, he tries to understand her behavior and how it affects me. My current struggle with my mother is her need to always remind me of things she bought for me or did for me. Going on 5 years ago now, my mother bought us furniture as a housewarming gift. They're pretty well off. I thanked her at the time, and years later, when people say, "Oh, this is a nice dining room table," or "Oh, I like your couches," my mother will chime in and say, "And who got that for you?" and stare directly at me. She will do this with other things too, like clothes she bought for me or items she got for my dogs. She wants credit and validation years later. My father enables this by not standing up for me and remaining silent when she wants my thanks years after the fact. Another issue is my parents' constant negativity feeding my insecurity. For example, my parents do not tell me they're proud of me for being a doctor. Instead, they say things like, "Have you made any mistakes yet? What do you do if someone really sick comes in?" While this is a cruel curiosity, it makes me feel like they are waiting for my mistakes. They've never made me feel, especially in my childhood, that I was capable of being amazing and great at anything. It was always a shock when I was able to do it. Of course, if you were to confront my mother, which I have, she would say she was just kidding and make me feel silly for getting offended or upset. For these reasons, as an adult, I feel stuck in the wrong all the time. I hate confrontation because even if I know I'm right, I still feel so wrong and guilty no matter what. I guess my ask for you is to help me with responses to my parents' questions and my mother seeking credit years later for things she's done. I appreciate your podcast and your sassy responses for narcissistic mothers. Feel free to share this on the podcast. Oh my gosh, Meredith. Okay. All right. I am in this with you, sister. And I do have so many sassy responses for your parents on this. And I'm looking forward to getting there, honestly. But first, if it's okay with you, I would just like to sit with you for a bit. I can see by your letter here that your wise mind is really present. You're aware of all of the pieces involved in this, and you can acknowledge for yourself that there's something wrong with your parents' treatment of you. And I also, of course, I hear and I see your trauma. I hear little girl Meredith wondering when she will ever be enough. I hear your vulnerability each time Wise Mind reminds you that your mom is going to endlessly seek credit. But little girl Meredith secretly hopes that maybe this is the time that's going to be different. And also, Meredith, you see and heal others' pain for your life work. And I can't help but see little girl Meredith who wants to take care of everyone and the same way she was never taken care of herself. So please also let me reflect for you for a second the absurdity of having a mother who stays with the father for the sake of the kids, but then continues to stay with said father long after the kids become adults. What's her excuse now, Meredith? That's some kind of hypocrisy right there. And Meredith, you're holding that too. Of course, it's hard for you to wrap your mind around the idea that as a kid, all you heard about your dad was a bunch of bullshit and you were made to feel responsible for your mom's unhappiness. And now, as an adult, you have to listen to your dad while he enables her. And then you have to watch the hypocrisy of your mom staying with him this entire time. Like, you don't offer a lot of anger in your letter here, Meredith, but I wonder if in between the lines, I might be feeling it a little bit. And I wonder too if maybe your anger turned on you a little bit and it's become shame you carry for yourself and with yourself. Because a lot of times that's what we do. If we don't express our anger outwardly, it turns on us and starts to carve us from the inside out, and it often presents as shame in the end. They have put you through a lot of nonsense, my friend, but still, they get to be in your life, they get to be in your home, and you get humiliated and chastised regularly for the privilege. I would be some kind of bullshit with all of this. So, before we get to what I want to say in all of this, I want to prompt you for a second to reflect on why they still get to have you in their life. And I promise you, Meredith, this isn't me challenging you to go no contact or asking you why you haven't gone no contact, even though I know it always sounds a little bit like that when I do that. But they aren't being nice to you. They're belittling you. They can't be proud of you, but they still get to have you. It doesn't sound like they deserve it, Meredith. And I hate that every single time I ask this question, I end up sounding like I'm shaming and blaming because I really don't want it to be that. I'm asking this question so that you can get in the driver's seat of this conversation with yourself. I think it's important to be able to say that you are staying in contact with them because fill in the blank. Now, we know some daughters are being financially manipulated to stay in their relationships with their parents. We know that some daughters stay so as to not lose relationships with siblings or grandparents. We know some daughters simply don't have a value around going no contact. That isn't their right answer. We know some daughters experience some good with their parents, and sometimes it can even out the harder parts. There are all kinds of reasons for staying, and I want to make it clear But in moments like this, it is really important for you, Meredith, to own why you are staying so you can get in the driver's seat. And it might sound something like, I'm staying in this relationship because my parents are holding my student debt over my head. I am staying in this relationship because I'm afraid I'll be abused worse than I currently am if I leave. I am afraid I will lose more people if I leave. I am staying because it isn't all bad and I don't want to lose the good. I am staying because my mom is getting older and I cannot handle how it would feel not to take care of her. You get the point, right? You want to be able to know and own why you are staying so that you can name and own everything that happens next. So, Meredith, now I don't know if you're going to relate to this or not, but I have a client who holds a lot of shame about letting her mom buy things for her. She feels like she was bought in a way, and now she feels like she endlessly owes her mother something, and that internal conflict, it shows up a lot for her when she's engaging with her mom because she ends up feeling like she somehow participated in her own abuse. Then she feels like her hands are tied when her mom brings these things up. Let me tell you right off the top to you and everyone listening exactly what I say to this client. Your parents were really, really limited in the ways that they were able to love you. They couldn't nurture you, they couldn't validate you, they couldn't take care of you. But purchasing things for you that would make your life easier for you was something they could do, so you let them. You accepted the limited way that they were able to love you, and that does not make you complicit in your abuse, even though I bet it sometimes feels that way sometimes. Also, we can't put it past a narcissistic mother or an enabling father to make your life worse for not accepting a gift, because we know that happens too, of course. They may want endless credit for their purchase, but maybe they'd also abuse you if you were to turn down the gift or the assistance. We know that they create these no win traps. These are the kinds of traps narcissists absolutely positively love setting. It's not your imagination, Meredith. And I believe you. Accepting their gifts was you doing the best you could with the tools you had at the time. You could have accepted their gifts for any number of reasons, and any reason for doing so is absolutely okay. I need you to make peace with that part of this, though, so that you can really own the things that come next. Saying anything next means accepting everything that's happened so far. The reason why you're still hurting in these moments is because there's a part of little girl Meredith with you who's hoping this time will be different, or that the statute of limitations has somehow finally been met. And this is going to be the time that they don't remind you endlessly of what they've done for you. Your mom has been doing this all your life, Meredith, and it's time that we just accept that your mom is always going to want credit. So, part of our plan of attack is going to be getting you to armor up a little bit more than you already have been. We are going to assume that this is who your mom is, that this is what she does, and we are going to accept that this is who she is and what she does. We're not trying to get her to change. Anytime you have a call, a text, a visit, you are going to remind yourself of who she is and how she moves through the world, and you are going to expect her to make a comment. You are going to anticipate it, and you aren't going to be surprised when she does. She is a narcissist doing a narcissistic thing. That's what narcissists do. They do and say narcissistic things. Now, trying to say that 5 times fast on a podcast. So that's step one, accepting that the narcissist is going to say and do narcissistic things. We are going to stop hoping for, praying for, or expecting that this might be the time that they do something different. armoring up and neutralizing the weapon by anticipating it. That is what I'm working with you on. It isn't about you, my friends. When you haven't even had the conversation or gotten together and you already know what she is going to say or do. So you are going to anticipate her doing it because that is the thing she does. It isn't personal to you. It isn't about you. It isn't your fault. You don't deserve it. And you don't have to take it on. Next up, you're going to stop expecting them to compliment you or respect your work. They are probably, in all honesty, Meredith, intimidated by it, or they're somehow limited in their ability to acknowledge your achievement. So stop tuning your lens in that direction to look for it. Instead, I would be paying attention to the people in your life who do admire your achievement, who can offer you that. Just because your parents can't do that for you doesn't mean that you don't deserve getting that need met by someone else. And you've heard me say this before on the podcast, but this podcast is super personal to me. And it means a whole hell of a lot to me. And anytime you guys send me an atta girl, a good review, something in my email, something in my DMs, it absolutely means the world to me. And I have a friend that I screenshot them for and I share them with her, and I've asked her to be proud of me. Now, the first time I did that, that was so vulnerable for me, and I felt so shy and maybe even a little bit small. But once I did it and I got the need met, well, it was everything. So, who has the self confidence in themselves and the love for you who can be proud of your achievements? Look to them to meet that need and don't be embarrassed about needing it. We all want to be seen, Meredith. It is normal and natural, and you deserve to have that need met without feeling set up to fail by looking for it from your emotionally limited parents. How do you respond when your narcissistic mother says narcissistic things? You respond with truth, neutral affect, and matter of fact words. Right now, those words she uses only have power because you have assigned the power to them. Whatever narrative you have assigned to what she says has become the narrative, but you can change the story at any point in time. So, your scenario is that there's a gathering at your house, someone compliments your table, and your mom wants the credit. First, I would try beating her to the punch. You already know what she's going to say or do, remember? She's going to first need to take the credit, and then she's going to chastise you for not saying it first. So, remove one thing from that list. Someone compliments something that she did and say, my mom got us that table 10 years ago. It was one of the nicest things she could have done for us. Neutralize the weapon. Then she can't chastise you for not being grateful or whatever the narrative is that she's assigned to your level of gratitude. Now, and if she beats you to the punch and asks, and who got you that? Turn to the person and say, I think my mom just told you who got that for us. She's quite proud of her taste in furniture, and we were grateful to have such a nice piece to build the foundation of our home. Just give it to her. Let her have it. Get out of the battle, my friend. This is her go-to tactic because it's working. So stop letting it work. Now, I am sure that dining room table has lost some of its shine for you as a result of all of this. And I don't imagine that it's particularly important to you whether or not someone compliments it. You're probably already hoping someone doesn't so you can avoid the whole thing. I even wonder how it might go if you play a little bit of a prevent defense and say it first. So, if you have a gathering at the house and everyone is there, say something like, and we're particularly proud of our table. Mom got it for us 10 years ago and we still quite love it. Or you might want to just wait for your mom to do her thing and say, yes, mom, I know it's important to you that you get credit for the gift you gave us 10 years ago. 10 years and counting, we still love your taste, or something like that. Just give it to her because who cares, honestly? I would also encourage you to trust the rest of the people in the room a little bit more, that they are going to see her dysfunction. I know I'm a shrink and it's easy for me to say, but I think the general population would also have a reaction to a parent saying something like that, and seeing that comment as saying so much more about the parent than it does the adult child. And P.S., this is one of my favorites. It's okay to have a secret joke with your husband, something like a bet, even. Your husband says that her first comment is going to come in the first 20 minutes into the gathering. You decide to give her an hour, and then the loser has to ABC or XYZ. I like this one a little bit because going into my wedding, I had so many worries about what my mother in law was going to do. And I have some doozies of stories from that. But my wedding was stacked with my friends. So we had little bets for how long it would be until she X or until she Y. And then at the actual wedding, my husband and I, we had our own little table. I got up from my seat to do something or see someone or say hi or something, and she was on my seat at that table like white on rice. And she sat down at the table with my husband. And it is honestly one of my most favorite things to think back on, that I like caught the eye of my friends and I watched all of these fake gestures of money being passed around the table back and forth. This is about removing the stinger, Meredith. Remove the stinger. Get in on the joke instead of feeling like you're the butt of the joke. And I promise you that it is always going to hurt a little bit, but it's also going to get a little bit funnier if you can swing that. Now, here's something else you might want to consider. What is the narrative you have about the things that she's purchased for you? How do you feel about them now? Do you look at your dining room table sometimes and only think about how your mother makes you feel about them? If that's the case, and if that's what you're dealing with, maybe it's time to get a new table. Maybe it's time to start replacing all of the things she's given you one by one. As we might imagine, you're going to receive quite a narrative for not being grateful or appreciative. And at that point, you can say, "We love that table well for over 10 years, and we're grateful that you helped us start our home. But we're not just starting out anymore. We're in a different place in our life, and we want our home to reflect what we've built and accomplished for ourselves." Now, you don't have to go and do that. You might love the shit out of that table, and you might be so sad to part with it. And if that's true, let that be true. Keep it. Love the shit out of it, but remind yourself that you decided to keep it. But the natural consequence of keeping it is going to mean that you have to hear your mom going on and on about it. If you can just work on being okay with it, accepting that that's true about your mom, you're going to find your way to peace a lot faster. She is going to weaponize anything she can, and she can weaponize anything she wants. If you neutralize the table, she's likely just going to pick something else. And as long as you are in relationship with her, that is always going to be true about her. So you might as well just let her have it. I saw this Instagram post a couple of weeks ago that said that the best life hack was to lose an argument on purpose. And I love that. And just disengaging, disentangling yourself, getting out of it, I sometimes think is going to be the best option, particularly when you know that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how you say it, you are going to end up in the same tangled mess that your moms create. Now, the comments she's making about your work and making mistakes at work, let's just acknowledge how hurtful and mean that is, I also am going to reflect for you that they're riddled with jealousy, insecurity, and they're obviously coming from someone who feels small in comparison to you. I want to remind you of that narcissism at its core is a disorder that is fueled by shame. Narcissists feel so miserable about themselves that they are doing everything in their power to change the narrative, to change someone else's story about them. So there really is not ever going to be anything you can do about her feelings, but there is a lot you can do about yours. If she asks you if you have made any mistakes, answer the question, no, I haven't, but also stop giving her material, Meredith. Don't talk about your work. Don't share it with her. When narcissists feel small or they sense that something's important to you, they will inevitably try to weaponize it. In mocking you and minimizing your work with sick children and their families, your mom is doing a typically narcissistic thing. She's weaponizing something that is sacred. Don't let her go neutral. Her narrative doesn't have to be your narrative. She can weaponize anything she wants, but you don't have to hand her the bullets. I would also encourage you a little bit to just zoom in on what all of this says about her and how limited she is to be a mother who still wants credit for something she did years ago. In asking if you've made a mistake, she is actually preying on someone else's sick kid. What a fucking shitty thing to do. She lives a very shallow and empty life if she needs that kind of attention. This behavior and tendency of hers illustrates what a broken lens she uses when looking at the world. I think we're having a lot of parallels, you and me, Meredith, with your mom and my mother in law. Because I remember at one point in our marriage, my husband got a call from his mom. She wanted her money back for the braces that she got him as a kid. Now, I'm going to admit, I just laughed at it and I feel bad about that because that one really did hurt my husband. She was so limited as a mother and he experienced an incredible amount of hardship from her as a kid. My husband knew what crack cocaine looked like when he was in the first grade because she was that level of neglectful. Getting him braces was actually the one good thing she had managed to do, and he felt like her request for compensation took back that one good thing she was able to actually do as a mom. Of course, that stings. It is brutal. How couldn't it hurt? But also, how incredibly sad and pathetic of her. He didn't give her the money. He just said, getting me braces is something I will always be grateful for. But when you got them for me, I was 13. And you didn't tell me at the time that someday you'd want your money back. I probably wouldn't have said yes to them if you had. That was something nice you did for me, and I'm sorry you regret being nice. Can you tell he's married to a therapist? Those were totally my words, but damn it, they were good words. Now I sound like your mom wanting credit for something. But in all seriousness, I really want you to see what I did there. I removed the power of her words and I neutralized the ask. You were nice and now you regret being nice. I hate that for you. There's power in the reframe, ladies. There's power in not accepting her narrative and in rewriting your own. She's never going to agree or see it. And that's when you say, I know you disagree. I know you wish it were different. Also, though, in those moments, a lot of you daughters tend to protect your moms from public opinion of your mother. Meredith, at your home, you might be protecting your mom from the awkwardness she's creating. Let her be awkward. Let people think of her what they are going to think of her. You don't have to protect her from herself, and you don't have to worry what people will think of you. Trust that anyone you have invited into your home who isn't your mother or father is going to love you, feel for you, and see you for who you are. And yes, that means they will also see your mom for who she is. And you need to let them. I knew at my wedding that his mom was going to stalk the shit out of us. So one thing I did is I wanted our photography session to be private. So ahead of time, I asked the photographer to shoo her away when she got too close. And my friend grabbed this picture of my mother-in-law hovering in a bush, trying to get a shot over the photographer's shoulder. Can you imagine, honestly, what that must have looked like? We were outdoors at a nice winery and she's sticking her head in a bush. It says nothing about us and everything about her. And we let that be true. Narcissists have all kinds of weapons, tools, and strategies. You guys know this. It will always feel hurtful to have a mother who uses these strategies. Of course, none of you want that to be true for yourselves. And of course, you all deserved so much better. But if you work on acceptance, this is who your mother is. This is what she does. You reduce the impact she has on you and on your feelings. She is going to do what it is she is going to do. There's no controlling that. All you can control is what you do in response to that. She's going to craft any narrative she wants. All you can do is craft the narrative that's true for you and choose to believe that. Choose to believe you. Beginning, middle, end. Your truth, your narrative, full stop. All of you are in a club that no one asked to be a member of, but you are in a community of women around the world who are in this with you. I most definitely am too. Bye for now. I'm so grateful that you're here. You're right where you're supposed to be. At its heart, I'm hoping to use this show to build a community of women working together to heal from childhoods marked by maternal narcissism and emotional neglect. My goal for Mother Mayhem is that this show becomes an advice and mentoring driven show where you share your questions, struggles, and stories, and I offer you direction for healing and recovery. That can't happen without your contributions. I invite you to send a recorded voice memo or write in an email with your questions and things you're struggling with. You can always find me over at heather@daughtersnpd.com. To connect further, I invite you to find me over at Instagram and occasionally on TikTok at daughtersnpd. If you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, I'm going to ask that you share the show with her. You can help me get the word out with your reviews and social shares of the show, and I hope you'll consider doing so. Special thanks to Heather Clark for editing this show. She's in my head and knows what I meant to say when the words come out backwards. Thanks for your time today. I'm always in it with you. Bye for now.